So, okay, the two of you, you're both incredible. Oh my God. But you have worked together before. So, Whitney, you directed James' play, Miss Martha Washington at Steppenwolf. So, but James, this is the first time you have seen Whitney perform.
That is correct.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I loved it. I think you're absolutely a supernova.
Thank you.
It's unreal. Y'all, in case you missed that in the announcement, went from directing on Broadway right into performing this. Like, you are incredible.
She wrote the music, wrote the script, performs it. Can I ask, what was she like as a director?
Oh, Christ.
She's a dream. She's caring. She holds the room with such a gentle but like specific and clear touch. You know where you're going at all times. Generous, so smart, like insanely smart, and just like fun.
We do have a good time.
We have a good time.
Yeah.
So, James, you did just win the Pulitzer for Fat Ham.
Casual. Well earned.
And that uses Hamlet as an inspiration. And then obviously this piece uses Macbeth as an inspiration to talk about Lady Macbeth. Yeah. Would you mind, like the two of you, just talking a little bit about the way Shakespeare, the way you might use him in his work as inspiration, but also perhaps as an antagonist in some ways? Or I would love to just hear the two of you kind of like just talk a little bit about how you view Shakespeare.
Thank you all for staying. I'm also freaking out because my vocal teacher, Tom Jones, is here, and he is the reason why I can even do that and then sit here. Like, this man transformed my understanding of what my physical body could do. I love you. I think, I just can't shake it, the Shakespeare. I think I am one of those people that history is real. We're all living in a present that's kind of predicated off of many choices, decisions, actions, and things that came before us. And the bedrock of all of the stories we are told, once upon a time there was a princess and then there was a prince. You go see a Marvel movie, that's a ripoff of Henry V. Every story we kind of digest in the Western canon are these little offshoots of what happened 400 plus years ago. And so I'm just very curious about that. How could something written so long ago be so relevant? It sings so loudly to me when I read it. So I just can't let it go. And then, once, unfortunately, someone told me that I wasn't doing it right or I wasn't right for a certain role. And then I was like, what? And then like 12 years later, here I am. But there's something about that. Like, we are Americans. We're not even Brits. And we still think, everybody thinks they know what Shakespeare is. I'm going to be quiet in a minute. But everyone thinks they know what Shakespeare is, but none of us were there 400 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I think we all should be in it. And the stories are just so good. So it is a kind of love-hate, but mostly love thing for me. Hate mostly because of the way people wrap their arms around it and say, no, this is ours and it's not yours. But love because of the poetry and, again, what it does to the body. It's like such a sensation to do the language. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a similar story. Like, I think we both went to MFA acting programs, and we were both like I'm going to take Shakespeare and make it on my own. Mm-hmm. Because I think what happens, particularly when I was in graduate school, I think it's maybe a little different now. There is this like impulse in those teachers to tell the students of color or the marginalized students, like, there's something just off about, like, and it's never about like, your ability to interpret the language. It's always about like sound or some quality that is like
who you are.
Who you are. So like when I got into the professional world, I would get auditions for Shakespeare and I'd say, I don't want to do it. Mm-hmm. I don't want to audition for that because I didn't feel like I had access to it. Mm-hmm. But I also love the stories. Mm-hmm. And like, what I love about taking Shakespeare and riffing on it, that's all he did. Those aren't his stories.
Yeah, no, they're not.
Like,
they're
nary one of
adaptations.
them. Like, the history plays are definitely not his stories. Mm-hmm. And then all of the other ones come from extant stories that existed in the culture. Like, Hamlet is Cain and Abel. Mm-hmm. It's a brother kills a brother and it's not good. This is no different from like King, we can go back to King David. I use the Bible because it's like, the Bible is really old too. So I keep coming back to it because the stakes are so high in the storytelling. Like it's life and death stuff. Mm-hmm. And that's always so great to watch on stage. Yeah, so that's for me.
And lastly, like, if you look at the kind of breadth of characters, it's mind-blowing. Yeah. I mean, there's more diversity in terms of like class and who these people are in all of the canon than like your favorite television show. So it is like a never-ending, like there's no bottom to the well. You can, every time you read it, there's more for you to take. So, yeah.
So both of you are writers and directors and performers. Like James, like you're one of the best actors I've ever seen. You know what I mean? Like you're a tremendous, but both of you are, right? Can you talk a little bit about how, for the two of you, how sort of directing can also inform performing as well as informing your writing, and how those three things distinct? Are they kind of all the same? I would just be curious to hear both of you kind of talk on that.
Yeah, I think for me, like the acting really informed me as a writer more than anything. Like it just drastically changed how I wrote. Because I kept coming in contact with these plays that were like, yeah, this wasn't written for an actor. I don't know who this is for. But it's not for someone to interpret for performance, right? You just never get enough material to do that. I think directing is something that I've mostly done out of necessity and curiosity, so it feels the most disconnected, but the writing and the acting, I remember I was writing Miss Martha while I was doing Angels in America at the Wilma, and I was sitting in my dressing room and you just hear Tony Kushner piped in your ear every day while you're writing. It's just had a major effect on me as a writer. But I'm not, like Whitney's a really good director. I am not a really good director. I'm fine. Like Whitney is like legit. I was a really good actor, but I'm not a very good.
That's how I feel about my writing. I'm like, I don't know. I skirt by with my little songs. You know what I mean? I'm like, put a song in there. Do, 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 you know? He's a really legit writer. Also, he was in a production of Three Sisters with Charlie Thurston, who was our Macbeth.
Charlie, hi! You were really good.
Isn't that crazy? Wasn't he good? So I say that to say, you know, this question about are they all the same? I think writing, I feel similar. Well, I don't know if I consider myself as a writer as much as I consider myself like a musician. And through the music, there's coming stories. But writing and performing and composing and performing feel really close. And then directing is this like kind of sad, lonely thing. Like, no, I always joke, like, people are so nice to you when you're the writer or performer. They're like, how are you? Can we take you to when you're the director, don't nobody like you. So it's just like kind of sad job. But I don't know, I do think that directing does feel like this other thing. It does ask you to call on all the areas of yourself and everything you have and everything you know, because you have to step into a room and tell someone what to do, and then they have to go and do it. You're not even going to be there. It's this weird thing. So you do kind of have to like reach for everything you have, I think, to direct. But writing and performing feel closer. It feels like a more natural human thing.
James, have you ever performed in something that you have written?
Yeah, I wrote a one-man show called The Threshing Floor, which was about James Baldwin. And so I played James Baldwin plus 14 other characters.
Why isn't every theater in America doing that right now?
Because I want to do it. I'm the only person I want to do it. And so it's not a thing that's available in the world.
We'll do it here. We'll do it.
I don't know if I can remember all those lines but I'll think about it.
Yeah.
Is it, this is for both of you, is it uncomfortable performing something that you have written, or is it easier, or is there, like how, I don't know, yeah, like how does that feel performing it?
I think it's hard because you have to stay on yourself. You know, you have to stay in there, and sometimes you have your critical eye on or your thinking eye on, and you're not really in there. But for me, I'm lucky I surround myself with people like you and Charlie and people who are like, hey, wake up, get in there, get on the horse. That's something I like to say, stay on the horse. So I think it's hard to perform something you wrote because you are your own judge and jury, and in a way, and you've got to be very rigorous, and that can be hard. It's easy to cut corners.
Yeah.
So I think that aspect of it is challenging.
I thought it was difficult because I didn't want to stop writing it. And so
Yes.
that's a problem for me, which is another reason why it's not being done, is because it's like not done.
Well, if you ever want to finish it, ETC's ready.
Yeah.
So Whitney, your show is currently on Broadway right now. James, your Fat Ham was just recently on Broadway. Can you just talk a little bit about that, what that experience was like?
I mean, it's theater.
Yeah.
Like on the other side, like the making of it, it's theater. We teched the play just like you would anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Took longer, but we did tech it just like anywhere else. It's just theater.
Mm-hmm.
But it comes with this, like, as I slide down into my chair, this like added
Crazy is what it comes with.
it's like pressure. But I didn't mind it so much, like, and I think it's kind of because we sort of were like building on the momentum of Broadway, it just sort of felt euphoric. But yeah, it's big, and it really changes how people see you and how they like want to interact with you as a person.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of regular, so that's hard for me.
I think what surprised me was how similar it is. Just theater.
Yeah.
I didn't feel. First of all, working with Jocelyn Bio was incredible, and Manhattan Theater Club was incredible, and we did this crazy thing with this play. The last world premiere of a black play on Broadway was in 1991, and we were the last one since.
That's insane.
And that's insane. And so going into it, I was anxious because history matters to me. But then once we got into it, it was just another play. Day by day, bit by bit, a bunch of people coming together in this very precious time in the one lives we all have to make this thing happen. And I will say, like, the way my heart kind of bumps with pride about this play, it bumps the same way about that Broadway play, because it's just another moment to share story with people. I had a wonderful moment, though. My mother, she came, and
Janice?
my mom, Janice White, she came, and when she saw my name on the marquee, and when I saw what that meant to her, we're from Chicago. I have a fierce, single black mother who gave me everything I have in this world. And seeing that moment for her was something I won't forget. Yeah.
And you meet the historical moment, like, so beautifully. And if you have not seen it, you must see it. It is one of the most remarkable things I've ever seen. I'm not blowing
That's
smoke.
how I feel about Fat
Yeah, okay, one last question, and then we'll kind of open it up.
Please,
but
yeah.
I would love to hear both of you maybe just talk a little bit about the state of theater these days.
Oh my gosh.
And maybe a small
Where'd that champagne bottle go that we had?
But, but maybe I'll give you some time to think about it a little bit. But, we're in like a kind of a funny inflection point, right? We're coming out of COVID. I think there's been a lot of change and sort of tumult in a lot of ways, and a lot of turnover at different theaters. And I think we're all kind of like getting back into the habit, kind of coming back to the theater. And I'm curious, like, what sort of stories, resonate with people, and what stories resonate with the two of you, and where do you think the art form is going? Because, like, theater's never going to die, but I'm kind of curious just to kind of see, I don't know, what happens, and what are the plays, like, what are the new plays that are exciting, or even the classic plays that still resonate. Anyway, yeah. But we'd love to hear the two of you just talk a little bit about it as, like, theater makers, and certainly, too, like, incredibly smart, intelligent people.
Tyler. Well, that feeling in the room we all just had? It happened. It happened. It's like, every time I'm like, well, no one's going to come today. Or, I'm going to fall on stage and Charlie will have to drag me off. Or something horrible will happen. It's like a bunch of people come and you're together. And you're responding and you're breathing and you're all so different. And yet you're in the same moment in time. And we get to be together. And I'm feeling, oh God, am I going to cry? I feel like it's invaluable. It's priceless. it's worth risking my life. Before we had the vaccine, I was like, let's just try and do a play. Like, it's so special that I believe in it. I think that the business of it is a very, in an unfortunate state, but I think the answer is working here, working in DC, working in Boston, in Chicago. I think it's not New York that's going to revive the American theater all on its own. As much as I'm proud to be a New York artist and someone working there, I understand the privilege that brings me and how lucky I am. But that's not what's going to save us. It's writers from all over the country and musicians all over the country and us making plays in every city as important as plays are in New York. I don't believe that one theater is better than the other. I hope I don't get blacklisted for that. Please hire me. I haven't paid off my student loans. But I don't believe that. And I think if we kind of let ourselves be equal and share the stories, your typical theater now in the country, pick a city, cannot afford to host its own season anymore. Yeah. So how are we going to have a season? We've got to do co-pros. We've got to share things. Things have to start getting shared. I think that's the answer. And as for the stories, I'll do any story, any play, as long as it can get that moment we just had. It was surreal to me. Yeah. It was very surreal. You guys were a wonderful audience, I have to say, also. There were a lot of different things going on in the audience, which is my favorite thing. Like, somebody was clapping and having a moment. I was like, okay, you have that moment, And then it's like, oh, are you a man? He said no. I was like, oh my God, And then there was a cluster over here, kind of quiet, but very with me and present. And then, it's a miracle. Theater is a miracle to me, know?
That's beautiful.
That's right.
I echo all of that, and I would say, it's weird. I feel like story and what kinds of stories we tell, it's sort of wide open. Like, we sort of have pushed that door open. Like, the kind of story is really open for the theater. But what I think we need to be focused on, because you can see incredible story on HBO. Like, Succession is better than a lot of plays. I'm being serious.
Oh no, we're gonna fight.
Just bear with me for a second.
Okay.
And it's because they raptured all of the playwrights out of the theater to Hollywood. So that's why those TV shows are so good. It's because they're all written by theater makers. Because we understand stories so completely, characters so completely. What we can do that TV and film cannot is offer people an experience. So I'll use Beyonce as an example. Who went to see Beyonce in here? I know that people saw her in here, right? Those tickets were not as expensive as a ticket to come and see a play here. And you get an experience when you go see that show. Live music when the pandemic came, pandemic is not over, but when things started to open back up, the concerts didn't feel the pinch the way the theater did. Yeah. Because they were offering real experience, real collective effervescence with other people. What is special about the theater is that it is a quick community. You are seated beside someone you probably do not know, and you are forced to be in community with that person in a really deep, intimate way. You're crying next to each other, you're laughing next to each other, you're and you're confused next to each other, whatever it is. And what that does is it builds the empathy impulse in us. Like, there's no mistake that democracy and Western theater sort of start at the same time in the same place. Because theater allows you to rehearse what it means to be a citizen in the world. And so we have to build the space and the circumstances for people to have experience, which is what we had today. That's different from, well, Robert, I guess I'll go rustle up the hogs out back. Where's Sally? No shade to plays like that. But I do think
Where's Sally?
that the form...
I think I was Sally in a production. I was a Sally in a show directed by Richard Jenkins. I'm having a stroke. Yes, I was in that play. Go ahead.
Did she come in washing her hands on a...
I died.
Drying her hands on a dish towel, wiping sweat from her brow. Like, nothing wrong with that. But you can watch that on TV and don't have to leave your house to do it. But you have to leave your house to have the experience that we had today. And it's worth it, you know?
It's worth it.
And that doesn't mean we can't have like plays where people, you know, talk about big ideas. We talked about really big ideas in this. And I bet you're gonna go home and talk to somebody about this.
Tell people to come. I think the thing you named is stamina.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I had this transformative moment. I was at the Guthrie Theater, where is it? In Minnesota. I was in Minnesota. It's a beautiful theater. It's beautiful. And I was there, and we were in a show where everybody had to scream and cry and all these things. And the local, what's the NBA team of Minnesota?
Timberwolves?
Thank you. The sportsman, the medicine man, like the sports, like when you get injured when you're playing an NBA game, they have doctors. He came and he watched a rehearsal because we wanted to be healthier. And he said this thing, he's like, I see you guys do all this stuff. You warm up, you soup yourselves up, and then you go so hard for this 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, and then you walk off the stage into your lives. He's like, that's terrifying. He's like, the bulk of bad accidents and injuries that athletes get, it's in that moment when they're not being careful, when they're at 100, and then they step the wrong way. And so he was talking to us about methods of release and methods of protecting your muscle. And of course, my program at Brown Trinity taught me a lot of things, but I do believe like my whole body is like a muscle, and so is my mind. And so I just started really slowly. I also just like had a child. So like, I just started slowly, and I think the thing is you have to, it's not about me, that you just have to go slowly and just try more, and just try more. And you know, it's art, so when it's going well, which thanks be to God it has been, you want to do more. And I know I won't be in this moment of my life all the time, and my battery, you know, might go at some point, but I'm here now. And so I just do what I can to stay healthy, stay happy, and surround myself around people who help me be healthy and happy. That's something in our business that can be harder to do. Yeah, and this is my one shot, so I'm like, let me just try, you know? And it immensely helped me. I studied at Brown Trinity in the MFA acting program. Charlie also did the same program with me. This is how I met Tyler. He was the associate artistic director there. And I would say education is different for everyone. I am someone who believes in education. I think it's a useful thing. And for me as an artist, where I had talent, but I was just a mess. I was a hot mess. And I needed something to help me pull together, even if at times it was something I was fighting against to put myself together. And for me, it was immensely helpful because, again, this is a muscle. I'm doing technical things. Even if I don't feel the spirit at all, there's still technical things I can do to make it through the show. And that's what I learned at that program. It was very helpful to me.
Northwestern good?
Yes, Northwestern was good, but I was doing political science. I was doing other things then. I was an undergrad, you know. She was in the streets. But then Brown Trinity got me together and was a wonderful master's program.
Yeah, I think so. It's certainly better than it was when I got out of grad school and...
Ooh. Old Man River. I'm kidding. Take me home.
I got out of grad school in 2006.
I'm kidding.
Oh my God, that's almost 20 years ago. And it was not great. You know, it was, I was working in Philadelphia, so I knew this community really, really well. And it was slim pickings for, and you know, in terms of Black playwrights, I could name them on one hand, the ones that were getting produced. I probably still can in town. Is that true? That's true. Maybe it didn't get better. I think my experience got a little better. And I also I always had more success as a writer outside of Philly than I did in Philadelphia. But that's the great thing about being a writer, is that the play can go wherever. But I do think that there's been a shift, but I don't know what has there been a shift? Am I telling myself that?
No, I think there's been a shift. Okay, some things have not shifted, and people want us to say it has shifted and it hasn't.
Okay.
But some things have, and I would say the reason I don't tell this story often, but I would have never started directing if there were more for me to do.
Yeah.
As an actor, I used to love being an actor. It was my passion.
It's very true.
And, you know, I could only be a whore, a kind of ghetto token, a mammy, or maid. I played so many maids. And I'm not that old. So I know you know, but I think there wasn't enough, and not just for me, for any human being. There were tropes that everybody had to fit in. Even if you're a white, straight man, there were tropes, there were little pockets you had to sit in. And now, I think what's changing is that kind of Roy G. Biv, those basic colors that everyone had to fit into, they've shattered and splintered because people are writing about all kinds of adjacent manners of existing in the world.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit more for people to do now. I do think if James was around when I was acting, I don't think I would have found directing, because I would have been thrilled to be in one of his plays, you know? I think we just all have to think a little bolder and braver about how we can make pockets and opportunities for people to come to the theater. And Tyler and Taby are incredible, who've taken over this theater. You guys, you're in such good hands. But I know that they're thinking and they're asking this question rigorously. But it's going to take a lot, you know? I'll be quick. But there was a study that came out about like the status of I'm a nerd, you guys, sorry, of philanthropy in the country right now, and all these people were polled who are like millionaires now from the tech business, for tech industry, for example, and they're aged like 28 to 39, and it doesn't register to them anymore that they should be giving, that they should be a part of artistic institutions. Like the idea of what wealth was supposed to do in this country, even though there's a lot of mythologies with that too, it's shifted. So we are kind of in a cultural moment where it's like, how do we get in my own age group, across gender, race, religion, how do we get our age group to care about public engagement and civic engagement? And the arts are kind of part of that for me. This is a big societal question. We don't have bowling alleys anymore. People don't go to church. People are on the internet. So it's like, what are we all going to do? And it's a really hard thing. But I will say, I feel the love in Philly, and it's growing bit by bit. And even though there are empty seats, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. And I think the short of that answer is we just have to keep having, maybe you have to hire me again or something, you know?
Yes.
Hire me.
I think that is all true. I also think that there's something in the culture of the theater that makes people feel like they don't have access to it.
Yeah.
And I don't think that doesn't have to do with access to the actual ticket itself. It's like when you, for example, I'm 42 years old, and I've been in theater at my grand old age and laughed very loud and had a person turn around and shush me.
Yeah, at my own show. Yeah.
So like that culture persists. Like we still have this sense of there is a way to be inside of a theater. And if you don't fit in, like I always talk about competency. There's this really great sociologist I love, Tracy Cotman McMillan. She's got an incredible essay called Dying to be Competent, where she talks about her experience in a hospital. She talks about how narrow the span of humanity that a hospital actually fits, physically fits. If you look at these seats, there's like, no shade to the seats, you didn't pick them. But like, theater seats are not designed for people who we would consider obese, for example, who would want to come to see the theater. They're not even designed for people who have disabilities.
Yeah.
So like that kind of infrastructure, the physical space itself is hostile to a segment of the population. Then you add to that, there's a particular way that one is supposed to behave inside of a theater, and if you sit outside of that, that's also a problem. So making sure that the invitation is come, 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 and when you get here, you can be your true, authentic self.
Yeah.
And we will learn how to be in community with you, with your loud laughing, with the way that you may talk back
with your
to
hearing aids, with your whatever you need.
Somebody tonight, when he said, "Am I a man?" and somebody said, "No." That's what they did in Shakespeare's time. Since we want to talk about the rarefied air of Shakespeare, they would throw tomatoes at the stage if they didn't like it. So like, there was once upon a time a culture where theater was electric and was about the experience and it was about being in community with people and looking at a moral lesson or a spiritual lesson and going, oh, great, I can lead a better life. I don't have to kill my children to get back at my husband. Medea did it, didn't work out great. I don't have to do that. We don't have that.
What a reference. That really sent me. I said, oh.
But that's what it is. That's what it is.
No, that's what it is.
Not
supposed to kill your kids.
So I was looking at the married couple in this, and I was like, I've always been taught that the Scottish king and queen, I just refuse to say that word in a theater, are the best married couple in Shakespeare. And I was like, I don't think they are. I think it's Lady Percy and Hotspur.
Oh yeah, they're hot. They get along.
They have great sex and they argue. So you know that it's a good marriage.
Anyways, we're working on it. Thank you for that.
Yes, thank you.
It changes every day. Yes. Charlie, wouldn't you say? It's wild. And I think all I know is when I read that Scottish play, I heard women I knew. Even, I'm from the Midwest, even the most sweet, plain and simple housewife that was at Sunday church with me wanted things that she couldn't have. So does Tina Turner. And that's what I heard when I read the play. And at first it was just me kind of crazily at a piano, red run, and then I convinced my colleague to play the guitar with me, and there still wasn't enough. And then I was like, I need a man, I think, because this woman's butting up against this man. And then there were no witches until 2 years ago. And so now, Charlie and I are talking often because we're working on 4 more of these couples. God bless them. These poor heterosexual couples.
Who else are you working on? Can you tell us?
Romeo and Juliet. Amelia and Iago.
I love that.
That's a dark one. That's a dark one. Amelia, you don't know who she is, but that's Iago's wife, who he kills. And Antony and Cleopatra. That's the hardest one for me right now. But I feel like it changes every day. All I knew is there's a pulse in here, and music made that pulse beat stronger. And every day it feels like a different horse to ride, Yeah.
Let's give it up for Whitney.